This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts might take off the shirts, but we at least ask permission first. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I am your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own website, Ice Cream for Freaks, and a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. I am joined by my brother and common man co-host, a man who definitely has no problem eating 50 hard-boiled eggs, Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
Doing awesome, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is a new day. It is we're going into the oldest movie we have, and this is episode number 20, buddy. Like,
really?
I can't believe we made it this far.
I know.
I know.
Looks like we made it.
Today we are going back as far as we've ever gone before on a film, from all the way back to 1967. We are talking the classic film Cool Hand Luke, directed by Stuart Rosenberg, written by Don Pierce and Frank R. Pearson, based on the 1965 novel by Don Pierce, who wrote his own screenplay. Starring Paul Newman, George Kennedy, Strother Martin, Morgan Woodward, and Joe Van Fleet, co-starring a bunch of awesome people: Joy Harmon, Lucas Q, Robert Donner, Clifton James, Lou Antonio, J.D. Cannon, and then a couple cameos from Harry Dean Stanton and Dennis Hopper. Opened on October 31st, 1967. Pretty solid box office. You always have to keep in mind what 1967 box office was. $16.2 million domestic on a $3.2 million budget. Made its money more well over 4 Oscar nominations. Go ahead.
I wish there was and surely there is, but to compare that, to
with inflation.
Right, to modern day standards, I guess.
I can probably check that right now, actually. So $16.2 million in 1967 is the equivalent of 144 million today. So it did just fine. So film did just fine. 4 Oscar nominations: Best Actor for Newman, Best Supporting Actor for George Kennedy, Adapted Screenplay and Score. It won Supporting Actor for George Kennedy. Actor and Screenplay lost to In the Heat of the Night, and then Score lost to something different. I don't remember what it is. Anyway, so Rotten Tomatoes, one of the few films 100% critics love, and I don't think you disagree. 95% audience rating. So, I mean, almost a universally beloved film across the board. It's not surprising. That's 100% critics is a little surprising, because I was expecting there'd be some contrarian.
Sure. I mean, you usually expect that, but hey, the critics got it right on this one. And the 5% of the audience, I am going to beat you like George Kennedy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a classic film for a reason. Jake, do you want to take a stab at the plot summary for Cool Hand Luke?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it, I guess. Right. All right. So Cool Hand Luke, this is set in the 1950s in the Deep South. And it starts out with the introduction to Luke, who is Lucas Jackson. And he is incredibly drunk and is using a pipe cutter to cut the heads off of parking meters.
Classic, as is one to do.
Well, yeah. And so he gets arrested. He gets sentenced to 2 years. And then turns out he is a World War II hero. He's the winner of a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, and has Purple Hearts. So he's a pretty significant war hero and this is post World War II. So, in hindsight, well, I'll get into this more, but probably PTSD and
Probably. And he even points out whenever they're reading his rap sheet, he's like, well, you came out a buck private despite all those medals. So probably kind of foreshadows kind of where you're going there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll get more into that later. But so anyways, he is sentenced to, this hard labor camp, chain gang, side of the road, chopping down weeds all day, every day. Really brutal treatment from the guards and fellow prisoners at times. So Luke gets in there, and basically he's a smartass, and
pretty much
he's not going to put up with anyone's shit. I mean, he's not a loudmouth by any means. He's quiet and calm and confident, but when shit gets too much, he's like,
he's going to push back. Yeah.
And so kind of that challenging behavior triggers another inmate, Dragline, who's basically
the alpha.
The alpha in this camp. He basically says, okay, we're fighting in a sanctioned fight in the yard. And they go out there, and Dragline just throttles him and throttles
the hell out of him
and throttles him. And every time he gets knocked down, he keeps getting up, and people are saying, just stay down, just stay down, just stay down. And then Dragline finally
stops.
Yeah. He just basically, he walks off, leaving him just swinging in the wind. He won't quit. So that earns him massive respect with all his fellow inmates, and even the guards a little bit, but I think they kind of think this guy might
recognize a problem.
Yeah. This guy won't back down, and that might be a problem. So they're doing all this hard labor, and then through hard work and just being a leader, and kind of something I love about it is malicious compliance. Where he's like,
yes.
Okay, you want us to tar this road? I'll set a fucking record. How about that?
We're going to have a blast tarring this road.
We'll have fun and have the rest of the day to kill.
Yep.
So anyways, he earns great respect from his fellow inmates, and basically he takes a bet. He takes a bet that he can eat 50 hard-boiled eggs,
which in reality, I'm not sure it's in an hour. I don't think it's physically possible. Like it's like those things where you can't drink a gallon of milk in 15 minutes. It's like, I don't think your body will let you.
No,
but I mean,
I highly doubt it. But
I don't know.
So they go through this scene. He wins basically the entire camp's money off this bet, and earns even more respect. He's visited by his mom, and she's dying. And not long thereafter, he receives word that she has died.
Yep.
Well, the captain of the camp goes ahead and puts him in the box,
assuming he's going to escape.
Yeah. He says, when a man's mama dies, he gets rabbit in his blood.
Yep.
So he sticks him in there until his mom's in the ground, and then and basically they're I mean, it's just a very sadistic system.
Mhm.
And just the minor defiance that he shows just with a grin or a wink
Yep.
or a little smart ass comment, they can't handle it. And they basically after
Two or three.
2 or 3 escape attempts, they finally no, I guess it was he had 2, and on the third one,
Mhm.
they tracked him down. He had escaped with dragline.
Yep.
And dragline ended up turning them in.
Mhm.
And the
Walking boss.
the
Walking boss Godfrey is the one with the sunglasses.
man with no eyes.
Yes. Yeah. Man with no eyes. Yes.
Yeah, he ends up feigning surrender and then attacks him, busts the infamous glasses off. He's basically beaten to death. They throw him in the back of the car. Local police say, well, we got to get him to the hospital. And he's like, nah, just take him back to the prison
infirmary. Yeah.
Knowing that that's a death sentence. He's not going to make the ride.
Yeah.
And then it basically ends up with the rest of the gang back in prison and talking about the good old days with the
Luke,
world
yeah.
shaker.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real downer of an ending, but it's not exactly like pessimistic. It's not like Seven's ending. It's not like the ending of Seven where you're like,
Right.
oh, that's rough. You're just like, yeah, this he was not set. This is not the world for him, essentially. Like, he doesn't really suit this world. It's he's too that's the entire idea of the film is anti-establishment in general. Like,
Yeah.
the funny thing about Luke in general is I remember, like, obviously it's been a while since I'd seen the film and I knew he escaped a couple times, but watching the film, when he gets first put in the box, when his mom dies, he has no reason to be put in the box. He is really, I mean, he's a smart ass. He talks, he doesn't really talk back or anything like that, but in reality, he's almost an ideal prisoner. Like,
And he probably could have been, but I think there's a Japanese saying that the one nail that stands up must be hammered down.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Yeah.
It's even they couldn't even handle a little bit of being a smart aleck,
I mean, even like when he holds up that snake and Godfrey shoots it, and he's like, man, you sure can shoot. He's like, even that is like, it's a compliment. And you're still like, they're like, no, we got to keep our eye on this guy. You're like, what did he do wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. And then another time, whenever he shoots the big old snapping turtle.
Yeah.
And he pulls it up and brings it to him. And
yeah.
Okay, go take that to the truck. And then
yeah. It's just, they always assume it's like he's gonna behave this time.
Yeah.
This time we got him this time. And no, it's never the case. So, the entire idea of this movie, it doesn't work if you don't have Paul Newman as Luke. Newman, it's the most iconic role of an iconic actor. I'm just curious, for you, is Paul Newman the perfect example of the best actor and movie star combination together? Like, this man is handsome, he's charismatic, and he can act his ass off.
Yeah. If you are, you can combine LeBron James and Bill Gates's brain and, Einstein and combine everyone and try to make the perfect human.
It might be Paul Newman.
No, it's not. It won't even get close.
So not only he's a guy who's an incredible actor. He's incredibly handsome. He's liked by men and women. He's married to the same woman for better part of 50 years, an exceptional actor on her behalf, an incredible philanthropist,
Race car driver.
a race car driver, makes a fantastic pasta sauce, like just across the board.
I mean,
So yeah, he's one of a kind. I don't know any, like every other person you can be like, well, he's kind of heard he's kind of a dick, or he's a womanizer, or I don't think he's a very good actor, or all this kind of stuff. And it's like, there's nothing to discount. Like,
yeah, this is just such an easy guy to like.
Yes,
because
so likable.
You don't have to separate art from artists.
Nope. You can say
one and
this,
the same.
Yes.
And he was just a good dude. Yep. I really think,
yes.
Yeah, I really think he was a really good dude, extraordinary actor, and by God, do I wish that I looked half like that.
Man, and the entire movie, you're just like, it's like, so every actor in this movie had their shirt off the 80% of the movie. And the entire time I'm just like, I get it, dude. Like, if I look like Paul Newman in 1967, I would never wear a shirt. Like, it's just like, yeah, at the end of the famous road paving scene, by the way, the actors actually paved that road for the county.
Yep.
So, but at the end of the road tarring scene, at the end of the road tarring scene, he's sitting there and he's disgusting, and they're covered, and he's sitting there and he's laughing, and like, even covered in tar, like
sits down on his shovel, and the light's hitting his abs. It makes him look even more buff. You're like, come on. Like, you're like, dear God,
1,000-watt smile. My God. Yeah, exactly. It's like this guy.
Yeah.
So
big ass, blue eyes.
So Paul Newman famously lost, I think, 6 Oscars before he finally won one.
Stupid.
He won in 1986 for A Color of Money. The Color of Money, whenever his remake of The Hustler, the sequel to The Hustler, very good in that movie. But I want to talk about the 1967 Best Actor race, because Paul Newman did not win for Cool Hand Luke. Alongside him, who did not win, Spencer Tracy in his last ever movie, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate, Warren Beatty in Bonnie and Clyde. Not nominated that year was Sidney Poitier in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and in The Heat of the Night. Wasn't even nominated. They lost to Rod Steiger in The Heat of the Night, who I have no problem with winning that Oscar. The only problem is it wasn't Paul Newman, but it's an exceptional performance. That is an all-time, like, you're like, Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate. He didn't win? No, well, because Paul Newman was in it. Well, he didn't win either. How? Because Spencer Tracy was in it. He didn't win either. That doesn't make any sense. Like, there are 5 iconic performances. It just happened to all mesh.
It was a competitive era there.
And that's Paul Newman's problem in general with all his Oscar nominations, is he was always against somebody who he couldn't beat. Like, his first Oscar he was nominated for, or the film HUD. A lot of people think is his favorite performance. He lost to Sidney Poitier back in the day. The first time when he was nominated for the Hustler, he lost to Maximilian Schell and Jessamine Nuremberg. At the time, every time he's nominated against somebody he cannot beat. Like, it's just almost a matter of fact. And then it finally got to the point where he was the guy. He's like, okay, I'm not going to lose this time. And he finally won one. So, but I think he was nominated 8 times and then finally got the one.
Yeah, but how many times did you hear him bitching and moaning that he was robbed, or he didn't, I deserved it more than someone else, or
it's a great point. It's a great point. Like,
he just kept doing his job until everything lined up. And he's a good dude, man.
Famously, his wife won an Oscar well before him, So she comes out with the Oscar, and I think she presented him with a fake one because he had lost. Like there's a famous picture somewhere. There's a famous picture of her holding her Oscar, and he's kind of off in the corner with his little statue.
It's like something you get for like a first grader's
something like that. But just to screw with them. I mean, sure, why not?
That's great.
Yeah, so he was nominated in 1958 for Pet on a Hot Tin Roof, in 1961 for The Hustler, 1963 for HUD, 67 for Cool Hand Luke. Was not okay. So the interesting thing about Paul Newman, from the 1950s until the 2000s, he was nominated for an Oscar in every single decade. The only decade he was not nominated was the 70s, where he was probably the most famous. He was in The Sting, The Towering Inferno, Slapshot, all those type of the Buffalo Bill and the Indians, all these type of things. He's in all these movies. He wasn't nominated in the 70s, but then he gets an Oscar nomination for Absence of Malice in 81, The Verdict in 1982, which is right there with Cool Hand Luke is my favorite performance of his. The Verdict is an incredible film, and he is incredible in it. Finally got his Oscar in 1986 for A Color of Money, nominated in 94 for a film called Nobody's Fool, and then Road to Perdition, obviously, in 2002. Road to Perdition is kind of the denouement of his entire career. You're like, this is what he evolves into. And then you can see kind of like, with, the range of this guy is just incredible throughout his career. Can't say enough about Paul Newman in general.
Oh yeah. And again, I know we'll get to Road to Perdition, but yeah. I mean, his performance in that, I can watch it now and I'm kind of like, well done, sir.
Yes. A perfect completion. Yes.
Yeah. Just great.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Rest well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Been gone for almost 20 years now. He's been gone.
That's crazy.
It's sad.
I remember watching him he was great on interviews with David Letterman.
Yes.
And they would talk cars and I mean, just I don't know anything bad to say about him.
I agree. There's a documentary.
He's too handsome.
He is too handsome. I'll give you that. There is a documentary about him and his wife, directed by Ethan Hawke, called The Last Movie Stars on HBO. I need to watch it. It's about Paul Newman and his wife, and all the kind of stuff they go into. So I would highly suggest y'all check that out as well. Okay, so the other part of Cool Hand Luke, the big part of it, is the idea of a chain gang in prison. So it's an excuse essentially to get men at their rawest in a group, like all these men in desperate situations and at their lowest essentially, and put them together for camaraderie. I mean, it's not like it's not really necessarily like you think of prison films. You kind of think of the kind of like it's constantly just like everybody's mean. It's like prison's not supposed to be a nice place, but the prisoners are not really the reason that prison is the problem in this film.
No, but I doubt that the intent of that corrections department was to build a team atmosphere.
Obviously not. But
or anything. I don't think it was a morale building exercise.
No, but it does happen though. Like it happens. Like
sure,
yeah.
Now, yeah. I mean, the dearest friends that I have are guys that I've been in like horrible circumstances with.
Sure.
And we both trudged through it. We watched out for each other. So yes, whenever you're in the shit with someone like that, I mean, yes, bonds will form.
Yeah.
Or you'll kill each other.
Yeah, it's kind of the nature of the beast. Yeah. But I mean, the idea of, so there's only two women in this whole film. There's Lucille washing her car. A formidable scene when I was younger And then and then Jovan Fleet as Arletta, Luke's mom. But I mean, essentially, it's not about like whenever that the car washing. I want to talk about the car washing scene a little bit because in general, the car washing scene is. I was watching. I'm like,
let me take off my pants.
Well, I mean, this car washing scene, the whole time you're watching it and you're like, is something gonna, are they like, I really hope they're chained down well. Like, it's like, are they gonna make a run? Like, I mean, according to,
you'd have to worry about the guards at that point.
I'll tell you what, it's funny. He said, George Kennedy, who plays Dragline. He said, whenever they were shooting that, it was actually cold outside.
Yep. I was fixing to say everyone was freezing their balls off.
He said
so everyone looking all tense and everything. It's like,
well, George Kennedy remembered it and said, remembered that his teeth were chattering from the cold weather. He wrote, it's like those guys shivering in the ditch did some great acting. and the famous line actually repeated in The Sandlot. It's like, man, she don't know what she's doing. She knows exactly what she's doing. I fucking wrote that down. It's a great scene in general.
Oh boy, she knows exactly what she's
doing. And even Dragline, it's kind of reads into Dragline's personality more because he gets back and he's just trying to drive everybody insane. It's like
Lucille.
It's like, boss, I'm coming down, boss. Yeah, come down. Boss,
everyone's
coming down.
Going to the head.
Boss, coming down. No, you stay there.
No, whenever I watch that scene, I'm like, in reality, probably everyone would just not even be trying to cover it up and just jacking off. Like,
absolutely. It's like
you would have to.
You're in prison camp in the 50s. Nobody cares.
Like, who's mopping this up?
Yeah, everybody face the corner. Yeah. So there's a lot of Kennedy is the one who is kind of the most prominent of all the rest of the chain gang as Dragline. The other ones, I kind of have facial blindness for almost everybody else in the film. Like it's obviously Harry Dean Stanton and Dennis Hopper, because of how they went on and did other stuff. Obviously, I noticed them, but everybody else, nobody really made much of an impression on me. Like.
No, and even Dennis Hopper is just like, oh, there's Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, he looks like Dennis Hopper.
Like,
yeah.
2-3 times in the movie. Oh, there's Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, even at one point, so whenever Luke and Dragline run away, they're like, we're going to go back. We get Coco and go away. And I'm like, which one's Coco? And I'm like, he's supposed to be the important one. Like,
right.
I don't remember Coco. But Harry Dean Stanton, and I guess his music in general, every time he sings, I'm just on board with what he does.
Oh yeah.
The music in this film is a really important part, and it's probably one of your favorite parts of this movie.
Absolutely. I love Plastic Jesus.
Yes.
I love that song. Yeah. This to me is very akin to another prison movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
Where there's a mournful Southern religious-based, it's almost a ballad.
Yes. And, apparently I'd read a really cool thing about this. So originally, where the scene where Luke plays Plastic Jesus, Newman he wanted to do the song all himself. He's like, I'm not going to fake the banjo. I want to actually learn the song.
Yep.
So they were going to do it right at the beginning of shooting, and it didn't work out because Newman couldn't learn it in time. Harry Dean Stanton, by the way, taught him how to do it. So the director's like, okay, I'll delay it a few weeks. He tried it again in the middle of production, and it again didn't really work. He wasn't really getting it. And so they bumped it to the next to last day of production. So Newman and Stuart Rosenberg, the director, had a shouting match, and after Newman still couldn't get it down. George Kennedy recalls, he said, I remember it as a tense, electrically charged, quiet place. Newman tried it one more time. When he finished, Rosenberg called print. Newman said, I can do better. And Rosenberg said, nobody could do it better. And
that scene is is the most just incredibly painful,
Gut-wrenching.
intense.
Oh.
Yeah, just a guy that is just you can just see, like, his
Yes.
mom just died, and
Yes.
he's crying, and this is a tough bastard,
Yep.
man.
Yep.
You
A tough guy. Yeah.
And yeah, that's a heart-wrenching scene. And he
Heart-wrenching,
did-
but so incredible too. Like it's
beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's so important to the movie. It's so
Yes.
important. It's like he's not just a guy who's living his life and doesn't really care. He does care. He very much cares. And it's not something. Yes.
That's his problem.
He cares too much.
He cares more than anyone else does.
Yep. Yep.
And yep.
And
It's yeah.
And going from that to the very next day, they put him in the hole because the very next day,
Because your mom died.
and he's doing it. He's complying completely. And it's like, sorry, Luke, it's the boss said, sorry, Luke, it's my job. It's like, just because it's your job, don't make it right. And
Yep.
I mean, that whole sequence, you're just like, my God, it kills.
Yep. I've got a quick thing on that specific scene. Whenever he says, I'm just doing my job, Luke, you got to appreciate that. And he says, calling it your job don't make it right, boss. Well, when I was a patrol officer, I got sent down to a railroad track, and this guy was completely passed out on the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Passed out drunk.
Okay.
And he was a transient fella. So anyways, to make sure that he doesn't either freeze to death or get ran over by a train,
Yeah.
I took him for a night in the drunk tank.
Sure.
Well, on the way up to the jail, he's, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Why blah 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 blah. Same old.
Sure.
And I said, I'm doing my job, man. And he goes, calling it your job don't make it right, boss.
It's like just flashbacks.
No, I went, hey, nice Cool Hand Luke reference. I was like, you don't quote Cool Hand Luke to me.
I stopped you from BNSF running you over.
Yeah, and he completely deflated and shut the fuck up.
Of course.
He thought he was laying a good line on me.
He's like, man, I'm going to put this gem on this guy. And
I was like, that's plagiarism.
He's like, damn it, I thought you had seen less movies.
No, I got you, bud.
Well, we're from the South. This is definitely one of those movies that have lasted. I think it's a lot to do with the fact in 1967, it's the teenagers and 30-year-olds, it's their favorite movies. And then they're like, hey guys, this is my favorite movie. And they show it to their kids, like our dad or our grandpa. They're like, Cool Hand Luke's incredible. And we watch it and we're like, oh, wow, Cool Hand Luke's incredible. And eventually we'll show our kids going, hey guys, Cool Hand Luke's incredible. And it's the funny thing about it is this is, you kind of think of the time of the United States in 1967. And you're like, okay, Vietnam is ramping up big. It's very hippie movement. But Paul Newman, anti-establishment, but it's Paul Newman, the movie star of movie stars, who has never been an anti-establishment guy. He's very much a straight-laced guy.
Yep.
In this role, set in the 50s, post-World War II, pre-Korea, like it's a sandwich, and it translates and back and forth. It's all. You can see the through line from World War II to Korea to Vietnam and kind of the go between and all that.
It's kind of, it's a sign of the times.
Mm-hmm.
I think where, yes, it's anti-establishment. It was a time where people probably wanted, to see something with rebellious spirit.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's still very American because he's a decorated war hero.
Mhm.
You know, he served honorably, had trouble,
Yep.
and you know, so it's not anti-military, it's not necessarily anti-government. It's
Yeah.
just you know, sometimes you just leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'll be all right.
I don't need supervision. It's like if leaving
Yeah.
me alone is the best way to make my life
Exactly.
fine. And so, okay, so you know a little more about this than I do. So, what would it take in World War II to get knocked down? So you're a private, probably drafted. You get a
Mhm.
Bronze Star, a Silver Star, Purple Hearts. You're in battle
Mm.
and have shown yourself capable in battle. What would it take to stay a private? You would have
You
to. You'd have to do some wild stuff.
you probably punched an NCO or something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
or yeah,
somebody has a vendetta against you because you're like, oh, I screwed up
because you're a
with my
smart
guy.
ass.
Because with my guy, yeah. So they're like, I'll show you.
No, it's funny. I was on the honor guard with the police department,
Mm.
and so we were doing a funeral service out there, and me and another guy stopped by a headstone, and it was a veteran's headstone, and it
Mm.
said World War II and Korea,
Wow.
and it said PFC.
First, it's like, how could you possibly be PFC?
The guy I was with was spent like 15 years in the Marine Corps or something like that. He was like, that guy got in a lot of trouble.
To be a PFC in World War II,
He
and
was like,
Korea?
that's about, yeah. He's like, that guy got in a lot of trouble.
So it's okay. So let's say you're Luke and you are not in prison yet. You are drunk in your little town and you're bored.
Mhm.
What is your fun?
I've never done that.
But okay, let's say you're going to do your fun little vandalism. It's not going to hurt anybody, but it's definitely going to be like, screw you to the authorities. I mean, it's like, see, cutting the heads off. The cool thing about cutting the heads off of parking meters, it's another screw you to authorities, because it's like, nobody's upset. You're not taking money out of anybody's pockets by cutting the head off of parking meters. You know, if you graffiti the side of somebody's business, that's work they have to do. This is almost victimless.
Well, I mean, it's money out of the government's hands.
Yeah. But that's the establishment.
Yeah, but still, some poor schmuck that works for the city's got to go out there and weld a fucking head back on.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I don't know, but it's no, for me, my only issue with like going anti-establishment at this point is like, I do think about who's going to have to clean this up.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Some guy's going to be out there like, fucking kids on the sign.
Yeah,
because I've worked for a school district in the maintenance department.
If you bend a stop sign, some poor bastard has to straighten it out. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Someone's got to go back there and re-pour the concrete and all that. Fix the fucking fence and the gate get kicked over. So that's my only thing against. I suppose I've been enough establishment that I'm not completely anti-establishment.
I know what you mean. Apparently, in reality, the opening scene where he does cut the head off the parking meters was filmed in Lodi, California, a little town out there. And after filming, the city didn't replace them because the film was such a success.
Nice.
So they were like half of them down, half.
He provided a service.
It was a tourist attraction.
God, I bet everyone in that town was like, "Thank God."
Yeah, exactly. That movie was a phenomenon. It still is a phenomenon. So I mean, it makes sense that it's one of those things. Okay, so a couple of pieces of trivia I wanted to give you. So the writers, Don Pierce and Frank Pearson, who wrote the film, they found out in the middle of writing that Paul Newman was going to sign on. And Paul Newman specifically went to them and said, do not write this with me in mind. He said, I want to stretch myself. I don't want to be Paul Newman doing a Paul Newman movie. I want to do different things. That being said, he was not the original person to select to play Luke. It was Jack Lemmon was originally going to play Luke. He read the script and said, nope, decided to produce it and let Paul Newman do it again. By the way, I want to be in the room with Jack Lemmon and Paul Newman. You want to talk about another all-time great human being? I want to be in that room with Paul Newman and Jack and Jack Lemmon. That
just watch them talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. Those two. I like two of the greatest actors, two of the greatest humans. You're just like, yeah. Okay. So I do have one question for you. If you, let's say you had, I'll give you a week to train. If I give you a week, how many hard-boiled eggs do you think you could eat in an hour? Because in the movie, in the reality of the movie, Paul Newman ate about 8.
Yeah, that's what I had heard.
Yes.
And then I think he threw up.
He threw up, and the rest of the cast ate the rest of the eggs, and then were just gassy as hell for the next 2 days.
Yeah, and you got to think you're in that.
Oh
camp.
Man, it'd be hell. Like George Kennedy's over there crushing 3 eggs. Oh no. Okay, so
I bet I could maybe hit 10. I would puke though.
I can eat a hard-boiled egg, but it's not something I'm like, yes, I like hard-boiled eggs. I would probably get to 3 and be like, you ever seen anybody eat oysters? It's like somebody who eats oysters and likes them. I don't, but I've seen somebody eat oysters and they've done a dozen and they get to 11 and they were like gagging. It was like, why are you gagging? It's like, oh, it's just the consistency. I'm like, no. It's like, and I think after about 3 or 4, I'd be like, no, this is the consistency. These eggs are messing with me.
See, that's what also pancakes do.
Really?
It's like
that whenever the syrupy,
eating a big pile of pancakes and it's like delicious.
Something gets you and you lose it. Or it's like a really good sandwich with a lot of dressing or something, and you get a piece of the bread that's a little too soggy, and it just catches you in the wrong way. I get it. Yeah. So 10, I think that's commendable.
Yeah, I could do it, but I would throw up and maybe other things.
All right, let's take a quick break. All right, we're back. So this movie is really viewed. There's a lot of spiritual aspects of this film that kind of deal with a lot of different stuff. Obviously, Luke is kind of an avatar for Jesus in general. And I know there's a lot of stuff like, you kind of like the nihilism of it, or how his kind of spirituality kind of relates to challenging God.
I kind of like the duplicity of it, kind of the, it's kind of like no one knows. Know? But at one point, Luke like basically directly challenges God. Yeah. And there's a big thunderstorm when they're out on a work crew, and it's thunder and lightning, and Dragon says, "Ain't you scared?" And so Luke basically challenges the gods.
I dare you to strike me down. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, "Love me, hate me, kill me. Just let me know you're there."
Yeah.
And then he's just standing there, and he said, "Standing in the rain, talking to myself."
That's right. And that the big scene, obviously there's the big scene at the church near the climax, talking and trying to figure all that stuff out. And there's a lot of, so in the spiritual side of things, a lot of people have alluded to that more than anything else, about like, he's more of a Christ-like figure. Obviously after he's done eating the eggs, he's flayed out like he's on a crucifix.
Yeah.
And you pointed out something about his best friend betraying him I'd never thought of before.
Yeah, Dragline turns him in at the end, much like Judas did to Jesus.
Yeah.
And then there's also another scene whenever he gets out of the box where he's still just wearing that gown, that white gown that they give him.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of parts as he kind of walks through. It's a very Christ-like visual.
Yeah. So
in that scene. So
yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and I really like how it's shot half the time. So the director of photography is a guy named Conrad L. Hall. Conrad L. Hall is one of the best all-time cinematographers. He shot Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, famously Road to Perdition. A couple Oscars under his belt. He's done a lot of great stuff throughout the years. This is him not getting a cinematography nomination for this movie is an all-time travesty. Like, especially whenever I think of shots, I think of one of the opening shots whenever Luke is getting transported to the prison, and they show the man with no eyes, and one side is all the chain gang, the other is the cop going this way. It's like, man, it's so good, and it's just filled with those shots. And I think a lot of any criticism that people have for this movie, it's not about the performances, the story, the script, it's all about the director. Every time the director kind of makes a couple odd decisions every here and there. So I guess that's kind of a aspect of it. But I mean, the way it's shot, they're not exactly subtle about how they're presenting him as being spiritual.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of it really puts out there like this conflict of like, is this man versus God? I mean, you can almost go back to like, Homer's Odyssey or something.
Sure.
It's like, are the gods out for me? Are they with me?
Am I being punished for something I shouldn't have been doing? Yeah. I mean, and that one scene, the scene where he continually has to dig and fill in his grave. You're like, man, this is brutal. This is so. It's essentially
almost the lashings.
It's the lashing before the crucifixion. Yeah, I mean, trying to get him down on the, and I guess that's kind of the idea of it. It's actually it's a very modern, and it's a modern hippie way of being Christian, essentially. Like, anti-establishment. Jesus was anti-establishment. Like, it's kind of it's a really interesting way to kind of frame things.
You can kind of think of it as, well, Jesus got pissed off and flipped over the table.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see him like that, like, pissed off Jesus kind of,
which makes sense.
Which I have heard, people relay stuff, saying, well, Jesus wasn't all turned the other cheek and this and that. So you can kind of see him as a Christ-like figure that's,
I know
trouble.
Yeah. So this is one of the films in a long history of prison movies. And that leads us into our next segment, my favorite. It's Pull for a Dumbass. Every week I go through the filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. We're not doing a filmmaker. We're not doing a director. We're not doing an actor. We are doing prison movies. I have 12 classic prison movies, and I have a feeling you're going to do pretty well on these.
I got my money on me on this.
I agree. I think I'm going to go on a limb and say there's going to be 3 or 4 you don't get. I have 12 for you. Okay, we're going to start out in the 60s. A classic, probably the film of all the films that Burt Lancaster did in his life. This is the one everybody kind of points to. How about The Birdman of Alcatraz?
Yep.
A classic. He didn't win an Oscar for it. He was nominated for it. But whenever you think of that film, that's kind of the movie you think of him in.
Yeah. The funny thing about that, the actual like Birdman of Alcatraz, like the actual guy was a pedophile. No, he was like sending like all like pornographic pictures to kids.
Oh no.
He wasn't.
Well, it's kind of like it's like you have to take some liberties. You're like, I like the general idea of the story. And obviously we're not going to glorify this pedophile as being a good person. So
Right. You're
Yeah.
like, this is a good story. I just think we need to, if we just take
Maybe-
out the pedophilia, I think we can go somewhere with this.
Along the same lines of actors, handsome, good actors who love racing cars. How about the Steve McQueen starring The Great Escape?
Woo! That's a good one.
It is the fastest 3 hours in the history of 3 hours. It is. It friggin' flies, and a great. James Garner being fantastic in it. Really likable. Everything about that movie's great. I really like The Great Escape.
I am a motorcycle rider,
Oh boy.
and I can tell you it is a mistake to watch that
And the
and then get on your bike.
You're like, I gotta jump Nazi fences. Like I got.
Yeah. I mean, it's like watching the first Fast and Furious and then everyone leaving out of the theater.
It's one of those things that automatically just translates. Okay, so those two prisoners are kind of on the same side. There's not really like conflict between prisoners. The exact opposite of that movie is from 1979, the film that popularized the idea of a Turkish prison, Midnight Express.
Yep.
Woo, that is a rough watch.
That is. Yeah. That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. Good movie, but there's a lot of.
It's good.
It's good, but yikes!
I don't want to be stabbed in the ass.
I was trying to explain. It's like, what? So why do people stab them in the ass? It's like, well, it's not illegal. Like you don't get anything
Like
added
waist
to
down.
waist down. You don't get anything added to your
It's not
sentence.
assault.
Yeah, it's so goofy. Randy Quaid, by the way, getting stabbed in the ass. But yeah.
Jerking off on a window. Dude, that's horrific. Yes, I've seen it.
That's a rough.
Let's move on.
How about an actual prison escape film? Maybe another Alcatraz themed with Clint Eastwood, Escape from Alcatraz.
Yep.
Famously ends ambiguously. I don't know if he ever gets away or not. Okay, so this is the first one I think I have a chance that you might actually seen. So this one, a rare prison comedy. One of the awesome Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder joints, Stir Crazy.
Nope.
No, that's a good one.
Got me on that one.
Stir Crazy. It's these two guys in prison trying to make it through. It's funny. It's, like they're trying to kind of, I think at one point they're trying to torture them, and Richard Pryor's trying to make light of his torture, like in chains, and he's like doing fake dances and all this kind of stuff. So it's by the way, directed by Sidney Poitier. So he actually had a good eye for comedy. So that's your first one. No. Okay. So back to terrible prison. How about Edward James Olmos in American Me?
Yep.
Yeah. Another one where you're like, boy, this does not make prison. This is not one where prison looks okay.
I don't want to go there.
No, you're like, everything about it. Smuggling drugs looks not fun.
Yeah.
Getting stabbed 97 times looks unpleasant. Like
The involuntary sodomy.
Oh man, it's just top to bottom doesn't look very fun.
Literally top to bottom.
All right, so this we had an involuntary Daniel Day-Lewis discussion. The most underrated Daniel Day-Lewis movie from 1992, In the Name of the Father. It is an exceptional movie. He is write that baby down. In the Name of the Father, he plays Gary Conlon, a man who is kind of more of a petty criminal. He is falsely accused of an IRA bombing in Ireland. Him and his father are taken to prison. And it's all just kind of like, they coerce them into confessing. And it was it's a prison movie, but it's also like Emma Thompson is his lawyer. She's trying to get him out of prison. Really, really good movie, exceptional movie.
That's I'm definitely gonna have to check that out because I'm a big Daniel Day-Lewis fan, and I also find that
The
that
Troubles.
conflict,
Yeah.
the troubles,
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating.
And
So,
it is a really interesting film from the perspective of how English people take care of Irish, and Irish kind of not liking the IRA, but at the same time being a part of the, like, it's all that.
it's a
Really,
mess.
it's a real good movie. I highly
Yeah,
suggest you check that out one.
I will.
I don't even need to. I'm going to go ahead and put yes for this one because you have obviously seen it. The Shawshank Redemption. It's stupid to think you haven't seen it. I don't know if you have. So
Remind me.
So
Oh, of course.
So as soon as the sisters leave Andy alone, prison seems okay for a while. I mean, it's not like it's not like it's easy, but
Right.
at least you got that. Again, the camaraderie kind of comes up eventually.
Yeah.
How about a different kind of prison, a childhood prison, and another very rough movie? How about 1996's Sleepers?
Sleepers.
There are four boys in Hell's Kitchen who are
Yes.
imprisoned and raped by Kevin
Yep.
Bacon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
A lot of young famous faces in that movie, but really well done. 95, but a really good movie, but man, rough watch.
It's good, but yeah, just the content's like, yeah, that's a one watcher.
Yep, absolutely. How about a different kind of prison movie? It takes place in the air, and it's all Con Air, baby, Con Air.
Fuck you,
Jake.
Yes.
Put the bunny back in the box. Maybe the worst Southern accent in the history of film.
Oh. Man. Yes, I've seen it.
It's so dumb. I love how dumb it is. It's so even for dumb 90s movies, it's dumber than that. Like,
yeah.
But
I mean, it's Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
It's
What are you gonna
kind of man?
All right, so back on to bad prison, and rough things happening to you in prison.
Is there a good prison?
I got one coming up next. So far we've gone through 10. You're 8 of 10 so far, so pretty good. How about Edward Norton in American History X?
Yep.
That's definitely another one watcher.
I've watched it a couple times.
Oh man, that's a rough watch. I mean,
but it is tough. Yeah.
The whole film doesn't take place in prison, but there's a lengthy sequence of being in prison and how unpleasant prison can be.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a Nazi. And
yeah, it's just a no-win situation.
No-win situation. I agree. Good point. Okay, so you're going to go 10 for 12 in this one because you've definitely seen the last one too. As much as we've talked about Stephen King adaptations directed by Frank Darabont set in prison, we have not talked about The Green Mile.
Oh.
And another banger. Yeah, I mean,
Stephen King.
Stephen King knows what he's doing sometimes, especially
Tom Hanks.
Michael Clark Duncan. You have Sam Rockwell in there as Graham Greene as the like David Moore. Everybody in that movie is great except Percy, who's a creep in real life, but everybody in that movie is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm unsurprised that you did as well as you did on these prison movies. So you went 10 for 12. That's your best one, and you're probably going to watch In the Name of the Father sooner rather than later. Stir Crazy, I'm not exactly surprised you haven't seen Stir Crazy, one of those 80s comedies, but I get it. So yeah, 10 for 12. Very, very well done, buddy.
Nice. Do I get extra commissary or
you get an extra package of ramen?
Woo!
I've heard. So the differences between at least nowadays prison and prison probably 20 years ago is the food is they've just gone cheap on everything, and like half the time these guys just live off ramen, and it's real bad for your diet, obviously, just all that salt and carbs. So I mean, that's what every time I see ramen I'm just like, yeah, it's prison food.
Yeah. I don't know.
I hope I'll never
I
find
hope-
out.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I've put people in there, but I don't want to join them.
I get it. All right, buddy. I think it's about that time.
Well, actually, you're not going to be in the hot box this
No?
week.
No?
Nope. Night in the box.
I'm in the box.
It's just the box.
The box, and spend a night in the box. Each episode, instead of
Night
me
in
starting
the
the
box.
conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Sometimes it's just trivia, sometimes it's not. We are hoping for knife sponsorships to eventually be the sponsor of the hot box or the box today. So I'm spending a night in the box. Lay it on me, buddy.
All right. So obviously, prison movie. So do you know the name and location of the prison where executions take place in the state of Texas?
I do. It is in Huntsville, Texas. It is the name of the prison. I don't know.
What unit?
The-
I literally live 2 blocks.
I know.
off.
I know. So those who don't know, Jake went to college in Sam Houston State in Huntsville, Texas. The reason I know that's why it is. I couldn't. It's it's funny. I know the prison in the Amarillo area because we were already there. But I don't know what's the name of the unit.
Walls unit.
The Walsey
Walls.
Excuse me, Walls unit. Okay,
Yeah. I mean, it's right in the middle of town.
really.
And there's giant brick walls all the way around. And then there's this really fucking spooky kind of a big clock up there
Oh, really?
that's lit up.
And so whenever somebody's about to get executed.
Well, yeah, at midnight.
So
But
in your time
not
there,
like it's like all that
so
often.
you spent 2 years there. Do you know how many executions there were in that time you were there?
I think 4.
Okay, I know they don't do it that frequently anymore, but I mean that's sounds
Right.
about right. Okay.
But Texas executes more people than anyone else.
And Huntsville is where they do it, so that makes sense.
About 2 blocks off from me.
so if you're ever in Huntsville, Texas, and you want to do some sightseeing, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so the egg eating scene.
Yes.
He obviously eats himself basically into a complete coma.
Sure.
So what is your worst situation that you remember as far as overeating, where you just made yourself completely sick or comatic?
I know what it is, but I think this is why you brought it up. It was around Thanksgiving, and we were living in Kuwait. And our favorite thing to do living in Kuwait was for Thanksgiving, we would host soldiers who were stationed in Kuwait and host them for dinner. And in preparation for this, everybody in the camp, our camp, everybody cooked in preparation for this to happen. And one of the ladies in town I think she cooked 112 dozen batches of cookies, or 112 dozen cookies. Like, so hundreds and hundreds of cookies. And at the last second, I think something actually happened, so the soldiers couldn't come.
Yeah.
So she had all these cookies, and she invited me, you, and our other brother over and play cards and eat cookies. And I remember that first cookie was really good. Cookie number 5 was even good, but man, cookie number 17 was getting a little wacky. And so I always think of that. That's the one I go to. I'm like sitting there going like, I don't want another one. I'm probably 15.
Still good.
Just still good though. That's the one I think. Like, I've had some meals in my time where I've eaten. I'm like, I don't want to eat anymore, but I can't stop eating this food. But that's the one I always kind of default to.
All right. So whenever they put Luke into the box, because his mom died, Captain explains when a man's mama dies, it'll make a man get rabid in his blood.
Yeah.
So meaning he's gonna run.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
gonna bolt.
Sure.
So obviously, like, your mama is gonna be a reason to run.
Sure.
You know, I mean, to go. So what puts rabbit in your blood?
Anything having to do with my kids. Like if there was like, so this is 3 days ago or something like that. My daughter forgot a thing for show and tell, and I saw it on the couch, and I realized she forgot it, and I immediately went, okay, going to get it. Like it was not a question of she'll figure something out. It was, nope, she needs this. Got it.
Yeah.
Go. And it was just a matter of fact thing. Was it a little pain? Sure, but I mean, it's not a question of, am I going to go do this? It's nope. I've been in situations where I've been living by myself and I've been trying to fly back for my kid's birthday or something like that. And I'm like, I have to get on this plane, and I'm pleading with the ticket agent. Like, I am going to get on this plane if I'm hanging on to the tail. Like there's nothing.
I'll the last guy out of Afghanistan.
Exactly. I'll do whatever it takes. It's like, I am going here. It's like, you're not going to stop me getting on this plane. So figure it out, essentially. So yeah, my kids are always the default.
Obviously. Yeah. Yeah, obviously. And I mean, I can only imagine, if you're locked up and everything, and something's with your mama, something wrong. Yeah, that's good.
That's a good reason. Yeah.
I'll probably try to pop out too.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. Or your kids.
Yep.
All right. So what is Luke's prisoner number?
37.
Oh, very good.
I just happened to
have that pulled up.
No, I don't. I just happened to know that previously because I was looking up stuff about kind of the spirituality of it. And they had mentioned Luke 137 for with God, nothing shall be impossible. So that is, so that's the only reason I know. But besides that, yeah. So that's the way. Yeah. 37.
All right. So whenever Luke first escapes, I think it was his first escape
with the very tenacious bloodhounds.
Yeah. That ran him to death. But he comes across a little gas station, and there's a couple little boys there.
Yep.
And he gets one of them to heft an axe and bring him an axe so he can bust his chains off. What was that little boy's name?
It was Ben. It was Ben, because I remember that, we saw it, and it's like, Ben, can you give me the axe? And my wife goes, Ben, you gonna give me that axe? So I mean, it was a really interesting dynamic there. Whenever the kid's like, I'll swing it, and he's like, no, you better let me do it. And the kid got upset. It's like, oh, that's kind of cute.
But and then he also, tells him, you want to see something funny?
Yeah.
Getting all that chili powder and everything.
Making those dogs sneeze. Yeah.
You just sit still and,
Yeah.
So
good times. Yeah.
It's a pretty sweet little moment.
Yeah. Those cute little boys. Yeah.
Ben.
Yes.
All right. Put your gown on.
Okay.
Pick up your boots.
Okay. I'm my crap bucket and my crap bucket.
And you can head back on in. You're out of the box.
I appreciate that. I am out of the hot box. Oh, one quick trivia note I noticed. So the one Oscar win for this movie was for George Kennedy for Best Supporting Actor. Kennedy was a character actor for a long time and been in this movie and then got the Oscar nomination. And during the Oscar nomination process, he was so worried about the box office success of other movies like Bonnie and Clyde and Camelot. He invested $5,000 in trade advertising to promote himself. And it obviously worked. He said, thanks to the award, his salary multiplied by 10 the minute I won, and said the happiest part was that I didn't have to play villains anymore. He got to be essentially a character actor. Outside of Cool Hand Luke, what do you know George Kennedy the best for? Anything off the top of your head? He was in a famous movie series. I'll give you a hint. It starred Leslie Nielsen. He's the police captain in the Naked Gun movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's
all right. No, I drew a blank on that one.
No, I get it. I mean, whenever you see George Kennedy, he's in Cool Hand Luke. That's what you know him for, and that makes sense. So, all right. Anything else you got for this episode, Jake?
Man, I don't think so.
What is your film rating of this film?
I'm going to make an extremely bold statement right now.
Okay. You think it's your favorite movie ever?
It is my number one.
Fantastic. I like that we got on board with this. Like,
it's my ATF.
Because I was wondering the other day when you were talking about Oh Brother Where Art Thou and you said it was your top 10. I'm like, I wonder what his number one of all time is. That's really fascinating. I actually didn't know it was your number one. I knew you liked it. I didn't know it was number one. So
yeah, just Paul Newman's just too good in it.
Everything's just about perfect.
Yeah. I mean, so many quotable things.
It's iconic for a reason.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you. It is a 5 out of 5. Little nitpicky notes about, oh, by the way, we didn't mention the most iconic line in this entire movie. We haven't even said it.
What we have here is failure to communicate.
And you said it correctly too. I'm very proud of you, buddy. You said it absolutely correctly. You did not put a failure. You said failure to communicate. Now the line "a failure to communicate" is said, but it's by Paul Newman at the end of the movie,
right?
Whenever he's mocking them. That's just a cool little line. And some men you just can't reach. Like, yeah. So, well. I'm glad we got your favorite all-time movie out of the way. I don't know whenever we're gonna get. Well, I'll tell you what. This is actually a good because we're going back to back with one of my all-time favorites next week. So we'll get to dive into that one a little closer. So 5 out of 5 for me. All-time favorite for Jake. Congratulations, buddy. I'm glad we were able to do this episode for you.
We reached it.
All right. That just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic, The Common Man. Thanks so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at NebIsBen, on Letterboxd at Neb810, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, icecreamforfreaks.com, and you can follow my other writing on the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. Got a review of the new Steven Spielberg movie coming out this week, The Fabelmans.
Mm-hmm.
It's an autobiographical movie of his. So check out that one. You can find me on other pods as I'm the David Thuza podcasting. Should have a podcast coming out this week talking about parental guidance, sex and violence in movies from the 1990s. So got that one coming out. Jake, where can the people find you?
Well, as we've previously discussed, I don't have any social media
yes,
outside of this. And hey, in the words of Luke, sometimes nothing can be a real cool hand.
That's a really good way to put it. How poetic. Lovely. Make sure you check out and follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Find us on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Thank you so very much for joining us. We will catch you next time when we got one of my all-time favorites, 1950s Cops. We got LA Confidential next week. I am so excited, and Jake's never seen it before, so we're gonna have a good time. We will catch you guys next time.
Go be world shakers.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?